Hello all and welcome to this tutorial. In our tutorial today, we will discuss about conversational AI. Prerequisites for this tutorial is knowledge of artificial intelligence and machine learning. So if you do not know what AI and ML is all about, please refer to these overview tutorials that I had created some time back. URLs to these tutorials are mentioned right here at the bottom, and I will also have it mentioned in the description of this video. These are some reference URLs that I've mentioned over here. I would certainly recommend that you visit these URLs as they have additional information on this particular topic. I will have these mentioned in the description of this video as well. So, what is conversational AI? So conversational AI, as the name suggests, AI is, mimicking human intelligence. Conversational is something that humans converse or talk. So it's a technology that is related to that. So in very simple words, conversational AI is a technology that makes a software capable of understanding and responding to a voice-based or a text-based human conversation. So now what we are doing is while we are mimicking human intelligence as artificial intelligence, we are also trying to mimic how humans converse amongst themselves. But instead of two humans conversing amongst themselves, a human can converse with a machine or a bot or a software. So when a software behaves or mimics a human behavior or converses with a human in, let's say a simple English or maybe some other language, whatever language that you want to use, that essentially is conversational AI. So that is in very, very simple words. If someone asks you this question, let's say if it's in an interview or maybe just in general, that is what is conversational AI? It is essentially replicating or mimicking or making a software capable to converse with humans, whether it is a voice based or a text based conversation in a human or a natural language. Now, conversational AI can recognize all types of speech, text, inputs. It can mimic human interactions. Remember, we are replicating human intelligence and also human behavior over here, and it can understand and respond to queries in various languages. Now, mostly you will see that a lot of chatbots or virtual assistants converse in English, but I have seen chatbots and virtual assistants and maybe even simple conversational bots that converse in other languages as well. And maybe in the next couple of years, we will probably see these bots, conversing in multiple languages at the same time. A lot of organizations have already started using conversational AI, especially for their customer support use cases to basically develop software, chatbots, virtual assistants to respond to customer queries in a personalized manner. So the intention, as I said again, is to mimic human behavior. So if you have a chatbot and a human is communicating with a chatbot, you want to ensure that the response that is given back is much more human, is much more personalized, and the human on the other side, as much as possible, does not figure out or identify that it's a bot. Okay, because there has to be certain amount of sense, certain amount of emotional resonance of that response as well. Now, we are trying to mimic this behavior as much as possible. We are getting there, but we are not yet there. But that's the intention. So hopefully, it's clear what conversational AI is all about. Now, how does conversational AI work? Now, conversational AI works using three main technologies. And you will see that all of these are related to natural language. Natural language, in very simple words, is human language, something that comes naturally to humans. For example, English, or maybe any other language that you communicate in, whether it's Spanish, French, Italian, Hindi. It doesn't matter. There are multiple languages on this earth, okay, and humans do converse in these languages. So essentially, all the technologies for conversational AI are related to natural language. Now, it is either natural language processing or NLP, natural language understanding or NLU, and natural language generation or NLG. Now, one thing I want to draw your attention to is these acronyms NLP, NLU, NLG, these are critical. Why? Because in most conversations and in most videos and tutorials also, you will see that people only refer to NLP or NLU or NLG. They generally don't refer to the complete name. It's just the abbreviation that is widely used. That hey, this is an NLP based platform. Okay, so knowing these acronyms are absolutely critical. Now, if you are someone like me who does not, remember acronyms that very well, remember that all these acronyms start with NL, which is natural language, and post that either it is processing, understanding, or generation. And I remember it as PUG as in PUG, which is processing, understanding, generation. So it is as simple as that. So you can create your own way of remembering it, but this is how I remember NLP, U and G, or NLPUG, which is processing, understanding, and generation. Now let's look at each one of these technologies. So NLP by itself is essentially a set of techniques and algorithms that allows machines to process, analyze, and understand human language. And these are generally machine learning algorithms that allow conversational AI models to continuously learn from vast textual data and recognize from the diverse linguistic patterns and nuances. So, as a user, as a human, when you are communicating with a chatbot, when you are communicating with a virtual assistant, okay, these are machine learning models behind the scenes. Yes, you see a very fancy UI in the front, but there's a machine learning model behind that is doing all the magic. Now, every time you say that, let's say, hey, what is the date today? Or what is the temperature outside? You know, what would be a good season to travel to Switzerland? I don't know. It may be any question that you may ask, right? Whatever question that you ask, remember that this machine learning model has to first take that input and, most importantly, process that input. And the mechanism of taking the input and processing the input is using a natural language, mostly, as I said, like English or any other language that humans communicate in. And that's what helps these models to learn continuously from this vast textual data. Yes, these models are pre-trained on vast amount of data, some amount of labeled data, a very large amount of unlabeled data. Yes, that is done. But as you keep on communicating these with these models, keep in mind that these models keeps on training themselves and become better with time and with better with human interaction. So that is the first part, that is NLP. The second part is NLU. Now, once you've taken uh, an input from the user, you've processed that input. Now, remember how humans interact? If I ask you a question, what is the date today? You will take that from me. You will process that in your mind. And you will basically, as a human, think, okay, she's asking for a date. You might also think, like, why is she asking for the date? And you might also think, okay, what is the date today? You might refer to the calendar. You might refer to your phone. You might ask someone. and you will try and understand the context behind it. Hey, is there something special today? Is it a Valentine's Day or is it a holiday? That's why she's asking for the date. Is there a bill payment today? So you'll try and get some context, some understanding around that. And you may feel, like, I don't know, I can tell her the date, but there might be something complex or something additional that might be involved over here. In that case, maybe I should ask someone and get additional information, like your buddy or someone. Hey, is there something special today? Is there someone's birthday today? Something like that. That's why she's asking for the date. You may do that. Now, remember, we are mimicking human behavior. So, NLU essentially, once the information is processed, it tries to understand the user's intent and context. Remember, when I asked the date to a human, they were trying to understand my intent behind asking this date and the context as to why am I asking this date? Is there any reason today? So NLU mimics this behavior and uses machine learning to understand the context, to understand the different meanings of the same question. Is there sarcasm involved? They try to replicate that behavior. She's asking for a date because I missed something. To understand that's human conversation that is involved. And this is especially critical and involved with virtual agents, chatbots, because remember that they are trained on a set of data. So if a question is asked that is beyond their training data, or they are unable to find a response to that, or they feel that the chatbot feels, okay, this is much more complex, and it should be able to derive that, hey, this is much more complex, then, and in that case, it needs to hand over to a human agent. So that's where NLU comes in. It has to develop that understanding. The model has to develop that understanding to understand the human intent and the context behind it, and when to hand it over to a human to take it forward. So hopefully that is clear. And the intention behind NLU is to make this transition smoother, and it is based on its understanding of the human problem and the human need. So that is where NLU comes in. And remember, as a human, if I asked you that question, what is the date today? You will tell me, okay, today's date is so and so. So you responded back to me, you generated a response for me, but that response was also generated in a human language, a natural language, in a language that I will understand. So when we are communicating with a chatbot or a virtual assistant over here, so remember, it processed it, it understood the question, assuming it that it did not need human assistant. It will now have to generate a response for the user, because it has to generate a response and tell the human on the other side that, hey, this is the answer to your question. And remember that that answer also has to be generated in a natural language or a language in that the human understands, most likely in the same language in which the question was asked by the user or the human on the other side. And that is what is natural language generation. Essentially, the machine learning model will have to formulate a response that is contextually appropriate as per the user's input. And this essentially enables the virtual assistants or agents or chatbots to construct a human like sentence or a response that is clear, relevant, and linguistic in a natural manner to humans. Of course, behind the scenes, NLG uses deep learning or machine learning algorithms to formulate its response. And remember, it has to be contextually correct. Also, you have to ensure that it's not verbally abusive, it is ethical, it is correct, and uh, basically it does not frustrate the human on the other side. Because if the response is not well written, is grammatically incorrect, is an incomplete response, is an incorrect response, then the human on the other side will be frustrated. Now, out of NLP, NLU, and NLG, the most important as per me is NLG. If you ask why, NLP, NLU is good. Because remember, the human is asking you a question. So the human knows what the human has asked. The user knows what the user has asked. Okay? All the magic happens behind the scenes that the human does not see. That's the machine learning magic happening behind the scene. It's where AI steps in. What the human sees is this response that is generated. And if that response is a BS, that's when the user or the human on the other side will get frustrated and leave. So even though you might have processed the user's input correctly, you might have understood the input correctly, but if the response is not generated correctly, then it's going to be a flop show. So generating a right response that is grammatically correct, contextually correct, is complete, right? It's not abusive, is a correct response, most importantly. That is the most critical part over here as far as conversational AI is concerned. Because also remember that depending on your response will be users' next question or the next statement. But it's a conversation. If I converse with you, depending on my response, you will come up saying, okay, thank you, or you'll say, okay, no, no, it's not clear. You come back again, or get me additional information, or something like that, right? So that is the trigger to the next thing in the conversation as well. So keep that in mind. Now, just like anything else, conversational AI has its own set of challenges. Remember, we built this model, we made it intelligent enough to understand what humans are saying, even develop a response for humans. So all of that magic is happening, but all of that magic is happening, which is very good, but there are challenges involved in that magic. Now let us look at the challenges. First is the language input. As humans, we have generated a lot of languages. We have languages that have multiple dialects. Depending on which part of the world we come from, we have different accents, right? We have US accent, we have UK accent just for English. We have the Australian accent, we have the Canadian accent, we have an Indian accent. All of us speak the same language, but with a different accent, different pronunciations, for depending upon which part of the world we come from. And this can increase the complexity significantly for AI because it may not be able to interpret, process, and understand the raw input from the user. And if it cannot understand what the user is saying, then it will not be able to generate a response. Something as simple as, let's say, depending upon which part of the world you are, right? If you're in UK or India, they will say, schedule, look at my schedule or look at my diary, block some time over there. But if you're in US, they will say schedule. They'll say, hey, send a meeting invite, put it on my calendar. It means the same, but the pronunciations are different, the accents are different. So that can really confuse AI. Now, along with this, as humans, we are emotional beings. Of course, we would like to consider ourselves to be logical beings, but we are emotional beings. So we have tone, we have emotions, we use slang, we use sarcasm, there's always some background noise going on. All of this can add to the challenge. Like, hey, someone will come and ask you, what is the date today? And someone might emotionally just, being very naively say today is this date. And the reason why the person was asking in that tone is, hey, maybe you've missed a deadline. Like, what is the date today? You don't even remember that? You were supposed to come back to me. So all of this also can, confuse AI, because AI might naively respond, hey, today is this so and so date, and not understand the sarcasm or the tone or the emotion behind it. So, do look at it. I mean, it can become significantly challenging as well, depending upon what emotions play a role over here. Now, just like any other AI technology, we have privacy and security are the two main concerns, right? So, how the data is being used. Sometimes these models can be black boxes, and whether the response that is generated by the model is a right response, is not biased in nature, and there are no security or privacy breaches of your data. There is no access of some unauthorized proprietary data to generate the response. All of this can become a significant challenge. One of the other challenges that I've mentioned over here is user apprehension. Now, a lot of users, including myself, are not comfortable sharing certain personal sensitive information with a machine or a bot. They rather chat with a human. Maybe it's just human nature. We are more comfortable right now communicating with humans than we are with bots or virtual assistants. Maybe in a few years, we'll get there where all of us will have our own virtual assistant, our own private bot. Okay. We may have bot friends. I do not know. Time will tell. But right now, we are not there yet. So that could be one of the biggest challenges, that people may not want to communicate with the bot that has been created. Other thing is, as I mentioned earlier, is incorrect and incomplete answers that can frustrate the users, and eventually they'll give up and say, okay, forget it. This is some dumb thing that does not understand anything. In fact, a couple of days back, I was on this website. I was asking a couple of questions. We had a good conversation, I and the bot. But somewhere in the middle of the conversation, it lost the context, and the bot was intelligent enough to tell me that I've lost the context of this conversation. Please restart the conversation all over again. And I did. And I restarted the conversation, and I had the exact same conversation again. And the bot lost the context at that very same question that I asked. It was a little frustrating after the second turn, but hey, the bot was intelligent enough to tell me that it has lost the context, and hopefully, whoever owns that bot goes through some of the logs, and I'm more than happy to provide feedback, and I did. That hey, the bot lost the context at a specific point in the conversation. So, and that can be really very frustrating. Now that I know, I will ask that bot only simple questions, or I might directly go to a human agent. In fact, I asked this bot to even transfer me to a representative or an agent, and it didn't understand what I was asking for, which added to the frustration. Okay. So these are some of the challenges with conversational AI. What are some of the benefits? Of course, improve customer experience, operational efficiency, and wider accessibility. Now, that is the biggest benefit, the last one in the list over here. There are a lot of people who have conversational challenges, who cannot talk, people who cannot write. So, people who cannot talk can write, hopefully, or people who cannot write or type can send a voice message and ask the question. So imagine that increases the accessibility of such tools significantly. And that's why these tools and these innovations become so important, right? And hopefully we might have a bot soon that may understand, sign language or something, that if someone cannot talk or say, they can, put in some sign language, or maybe there are bots for blind people with braille, etc., and that can just turn out a braille response back to the person, and the person also questions in braille. I mean, the accessibility is significantly high. In fact, if you go to ATMs, etc., you will see that there is braille over there as well. And there are these voice assistant lines or special numbers that are developed for people who need additional assistant for accessibility reasons. Okay, so that's one of the biggest benefits of some conversational AI. Use cases. So I've categorized use cases over here in informational, data capture, transaction, and proactive. But for informational, it's like chatbots, visual assistants. For data capture, is capturing user details, feedback, post-purchase surveys, some post-service chats. They ask you for feedback. That can be certainly done by conversational AI. Again, transactional, you can have bots placing your orders, booking tickets, making reservation, transferring money, paying bills, or telling you what your account balance is. Proactive, this is one of my favorite use cases. I would really like someone to, send me reminders of my upcoming appointments, tell me that, hey, I have to finish this task, suggest some products depending upon my browsing history or what I use, and maybe provide some updates on some parcels that have shipped, or give me some updates on any service disruptions. For example, New York subway, or Mumbai local, or BART in California, or Eurorail. Any of these service disruptions, you can certainly use this service over there, right? So this technology comes very, very handy. What are some of the AWS services used for conversational AI? One is Amazon Lex, another one is Kendra. Lex is pretty much based on the same conversational engine as Alexa. So give it a shot. It gives you pretty high quality speech recognition and language understanding capabilities. And Kendra is a conversational search service. So do try out these services and let me know your feedback. So this is it from me today, guys. If there are any questions, comments, do post them. And I will see you shortly in some other video. Till then, take care. Bye bye.